Guess what day it is?
Hump day!
Hump day! It's hump day!
Hey, Mike!
Mike.
Guess what day it is? Hey, Camo! Guess what day it is?
Hump Day on the Voice of Texas, AM 700 KSEV, the Chris Salcedo Show. Glad you have tuned in today, everybody. As they say in the vernacular, humdinger of a show. This is the type of show I'm going to ask you guys to do some of the heavy lifting. Because I got into an interesting debate yesterday, and I'll explain all of that coming up, about Trump. Well, Trump came out and said this. Listen to this.
If we don't change the legislation, if we don't get rid of these loopholes where killers are allowed to come into our country and continue to kill, if we don't change it, let's have a shutdown. We'll do a shutdown, and it's worth it for our country. I'd love to see a shutdown if we don't get this stuff taken care of.
Yeah, here we are talking shutdown again. After the Democrats got blamed for the last one, many Republicans are going, geez, what are you doing talking about a shutdown? And I think Trump maybe understands something these Republicans don't. Now understand, Chuck Schumer, all of the Democrats, they're giddy. They think they're going to play politics with this and say, Trump, now it's a Trump shutdown. Now it's going to be a Trump shutdown. But I think there's a difference between the fight in the last shutdown over illegal immigrants and the fight this time over shutdown over the illegal immigrants. And I'll explain what, and I think the vast majority of the Washington, D.C. punditry, even folks on our side, are missing this. So we'll get into all of that. I wanted to bring up a couple of things I saw yesterday. First off, the National Football League, a poll came out. I think it was an NBC poll. Yeah, here it is. 22% drop in viewership among a certain demographic. They broke this down into demographics. Maybe it wasn't 22%. Let me just read from the article. Declining interest in the National Football League has been closely covered topic throughout the season, but an NBC Wall Street Journal poll delved into the demographics behind the drop. For those of you who are products like me of the government-run education system, demographics, meaning age, sometimes religion, sex, you're male or female, or, your ethnic background. Demographics. And it found that white people, specifically white men, are the biggest, well, they wrote it like this, culprits. Or white men were the most offended by the National Football League. Let's put it that way. The National Football League, they're the ones who did the deed. National Football League deserves all the blame for ruining their product for white men, for whatever reason. In this case, it happens to be over Black Lives Matter, but, they could have come out with no white men playing in the NFL standard. That would have turned off white people. Anyway, what are the overall numbers? The number of people overall who say they follow the NFL has declined sharply since 2014, according to NBC. Last month's poll showed that 49% of responders indicated they closely follow the league, but the figure was 58 in January of 2014. So we're looking at, what, 9%? 8? No, wait a minute. That's not, it's 9%. So that's not insignificant. You lose 9%, borderline 10% of your viewing audience. That's not good. That's not a build for success. Now, all those people seem to be persuadable and maybe will be, and this is all good news for the XFL. I want you guys to remember this. This is all good news, demographically speaking. Money and viewers and interest in the NFL minus equals plus for a pro-American football league to come onto the scene. How do the numbers break down by race? Since 2014, the number of blacks and Hispanics who say they closely follow the NFL has remained essentially flat, meaning there are no new black people watching, no new Hispanic people watching. So all of the shenanigans over the season the NFL had undertaken, they didn't win any converts. They didn't pull in any minorities to offset the loss of whites. But among whites, that figure is down 12 points from 59% in 2014 to 47% in 2018. Yeah. So from 2014,
well, the networks don't seem to have a problem with it.
Well, no, the networks have the problem with it. All they do is
they're spending a lot of money. You see, Fox just re-upped just won the
Thursday night
football package.
Yep.
That's going to pay out about $550 million a year to the owners in the National Football League.
And you know what their solution was? Raise prices of their ads. That's what they're doing. So since there are fewer eyes on it, and they're raising prices on their ads, and I'm thinking to myself, how does that work? We have a smaller audience, now pay us more for your ads. I don't get it. Now, granted, look, and Russell's point here is that no matter what, it's still the greatest thing going as far as reality TV is concerned. That's what NFL football and sports is. It's actual reality TV. Doesn't cost that much as far as the actors are concerned to the networks. Costs the owners plenty. What about the gender when it's added into the demographic mix? From 2014 to last month, the percentage of white men who closely follow the NFL dropped 22 points, from 69% to 47%. Now, this is just closely following. The same time period, the percentage of women who closely follow the NFL stayed relatively the same at 47%. So what does this tell us? This tells us the National Football League is bleeding interest. People are tuning out. There's an audience there to be had. So that was something that passed by our desk yesterday that I thought was interesting to pass on to you. Another interesting thing, and I don't normally read stories from this outlet, but after I start reading, you'll know why. Gizmodo is the write-up, and the article reads as follows. If you thought the Solo trailer was the big Star Wars news of the week, think again. Breaking news from a galaxy far, far away tells us that the creators of another fantasy epic, HBO's Game of Thrones, will soon be working on a whole new series of Star Wars films. According to StarWars.com, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss will be writing and producing the new series of movies, which will be separate and both the episodic Skywalker saga and the recently announced trilogy being developed. The Rian Johnson writer-director of Star Wars, The Last Jedi, that's a lot of Star Wars, will also be inside of this collaborative effort. Now, the reason why I say this is exciting is because, and for those of you who know Game of Thrones, very well written. Game of Thrones, the characters are very well developed. The sets and the special effects are superb. And having that vision coming into Star Wars, it's a good thing. I am expecting good things out of this. And for those of us who were just happy with having the last three movies done, this is like Christmas morning, knowing that there's going to be Star Wars on. I mean, Russell, come on. I mean, you haven't watched Game of Thrones, have you? Do you watch Game of Thrones?
No, I do not.
You ought to pick it up. It's actually a really good series. Don't watch it with the boys in the room because it has some adult scenes in it, but it is very well written. And this is the last season of Game of Thrones. As a matter of fact, they have no replacement for it over at HBO, so they're dragging out the last season so they can give time for a new production to come in. By the way, while I'm thinking about this, so that's that. There is another show that I found on Starz, and this is all the rage, folks. HBO and Showtime started this original content. Netflix followed. And now Star's coming out with original content. They have something called Outlander, which is pretty good. And then a new series that just started about 3 weeks ago called Counterpart. Now, Counterpart is very interesting. it posits. Russell, are you familiar with the multiverse theory? The multiverse theory states it's actually a theory in physics that anything that could happen has happened. Okay, follow me. That every decision you've made, maybe there is a time when or an event where I asked Susie Fanta out to the dance and she said yes, and but in my reality right here, she said no. Okay, back when I was, what was that, 8th grade, 7th grade, I asked Susie Fanta before I could even get the words out of my mouth. She turned around to me and said no. Oh, that was bad. That stung. That one hurt. I remember that. But there is a universe out there where your liberty-loving Latino actually got Susie Fanta to go to the dance, the middle school dance. So that's called the multiverse theory. Anyway, Counterpart takes place in this event that happened, that there was one reality, they say, until some sort of cataclysm happened, some sort of doorway was opened. And then all of a sudden there are two realities. There's two sides where you have a doppelganger. You have somebody else who's just like you, but maybe took a different path in life on the other side. And it's full of intrigue. It's like a Soviet U.S. spy era, but across the multiverse. And it's really good. And the principal, the star in it, you know, the guy that played J. Jonah Jameson in Spider-Man, the original incarnation of Spider-Man.
Yes.
Also is in the farmers commercials. Da, 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 we are farmers. That guy. You know, we cover a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. That guy. He is the principal actor, and he's great. He's fantastic. So, and it's got an all-star cast surrounding it. So Counterpart is also something I'd highly recommend. They're putting out some good stuff, folks, and no commercials. No commercials on Starz, Showtime, HBO. You know, granted, you got to pay for the premium service, but it's good. And then if you don't want to even pay for that, Netflix is putting a lot of good stuff too. Stranger Things is good. And about a year ago, I wasn't into this until I started looking at ways to get away from traditional television marketing and get away from actually unplugging the cable altogether. And I'm discovering all of this new programming out there in Star Wars, knowing that we have an entire series of Star Wars yet to come after we get one more Star Wars movie from the original saga and then two more standalones. There's more in the pike. So that and this is one positive aspect I think we can say of Disney, that it's actually going to crank out. They see the Star Wars franchise is something they're going to continue to crank out because fans are hungry for it. And after the last Star Wars movie, man, am I hungry for a good Star Wars movie. It was that bad, Russell. I'm sorry. It was that bad.
It was a good movie.
It was not a good movie. I don't know how you can look at Rogue One and then look at that piece of garbage that they put out last time and say, oh, that was a good movie. Come on. Rogue One is the gold standard. Come on. You got to say that.
Rogue One was awesome. There's no doubt about it.
No doubt about it. Rogue One was it. That was the pinnacle of Star Wars movie making. Good storytelling, good character development, lots of action, great special effects. It was all in there. This last Star Wars, The Last Jedi was just bleh, had no direction, just going off in every other direction. Very little character development, and special effects were good. I can say at least one good thing about it. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. In the break, here's what I want you to ponder this.
Don't change the legislation. If we don't get rid of these loopholes where killers are allowed to come into our country and continue to kill. If we don't change it, let's have a shutdown. We'll do a shutdown, and it's worth it for our country. I'd love to see a shutdown if we don't get this stuff taken care of.
Did Trump just commit political suicide, or did Donald Trump do what he always does? Did he read the American electorate better than anybody up there in Washington, D.C. has? I have some insights, and I'll ask you to put your thinking caps on, because something happened to me on Facebook yesterday that you guys may side against me. Coming up next, the Chris Salcedo Show on The Voice. All right, let me sneak a couple of calls in here. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV, and then we'll start tackling this thing with Trump. Toby, thanks for hanging on, man. What say you?
Hey, Chris, you kind of got me stoked about film and TV just now. Like you, I'm a big sci-fi fan.
Yeah.
And, I didn't think Luke Skywalker was in character in The Last Jedi.
Thank you.
I think that's a big problem I had with it.
Uh-huh.
One of them.
You know what? Mark Hamill himself, the actor who plays Luke Skywalker, said he was disappointed with the role. And he had every right to be. That what we saw wasn't Luke Skywalker, wasn't at all. I think we're safe in talking about it now. I still don't know what killed Luke Skywalker. What did he sweat too hard or what? I have no idea what killed Luke Skywalker. It was just complete.
He was an old man that became one with the Force.
Oh dear Lord!
That was ridiculous.
Thank you.
He didn't even go fight. He wasn't really in the fight either. It was a projection.
I know.
That was real life.
Anyway.
Another thing I want to tell you, Netflix is going to have Lost in Space starting.
No.
A new Lost in Space series starting this year.
That's going to be great.
Check that out. It's going to be serious. It's not going to be campy like the original was.
With Dr. Smith. You remember that pansy?
The only thing I don't like.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't like about that, Dr. Smith is a girl in this.
Well, it all depends on who the girl is.
Well, it's okay, but I don't like when they just change characters arbitrarily.
You know what? I didn't think I was going to like Starbuck being cast as a female in the new Battlestar Galactica, but it ended up working for me. So
yeah, you're right. You're right. That was a good character.
I'll give it a chance. Yeah. Have you seen Stranger Things on Netflix?
Oh, yeah. I binged both seasons. It's a great series.
It really is. And you know what? Talk about nostalgia. For those of you who are kids of the 80s, I mean, it's one big nostalgia fest. Music.
It really is. The music's there, everything.
Yep. Hey, Toby, thank you very much for the call, man. I appreciate it. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Hood, glad you waited, man. What's going on?
Will Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia be boning each other since it's the Game of Thrones? If you know how twisted that show is,
boy,
right?
Yeah, I mean it is. Well, first off, Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia are gone, but of course they could resurrect them, I guess. No, you know what? You're right, and I wasn't talking about necessarily the plot twist.
It's going to be naughty, but I have two things.
It's gonna be naughty. That's a bumper sticker for you, Hood. You got to make that. It's gonna be naughty.
Okay, I have two things.
All right, go ahead.
President Trump, please do not do the military parade. You have enough people in the media who already think you are a dictator. Granted, this could be an amazing ploy to make the Democrats look anti-military because they will be against it, but this is really a bad idea. Number two, Adam Schiff needs to be arrested because if you saw I posted the link on I sent it to you. The
Russia collusion.
He got trolled by two Ukrainians
posing as Russian agents.
And this happened last year.
I know.
And finally, I don't know if you saw this on Fox, but apparently Kenyon Berry knew all about that, was getting text message, that more text messages have come out. Fox is reporting this. This was their leading story on Fox and Friends this morning. A bunch more text messages have come out.
I saw it.
And, this is very damning. And also, real quick, Trey Gowdy.
Yeah.
I watched that interview yesterday.
He's a good man, man.
Pretty damning to the Democrats also. Rosenstein does not look good, and neither does Blumenthal. But anyway, if the Game of Thrones, back to the Game of Thrones thing, if that happens, you're going to see topless stormtroopers running around doing all sorts of nasty stuff.
Thank you, Hood. Appreciate the call. One thing Hood touched on before, and we were going to get to that later on this morning. And by the way, here's the headline: FBI lovers, latest text messages. Obama wants to know everything, they say. This is Peter Strzok and his tart, Lisa Page. What he was making reference to is that Adam Schiff, Tucker Carlson did a great bit on this last night too. Adam Schiff appeared on Russia television. Do you guys know that? RT? Russia television that's been designated a foreign agent. The entire so-called news operation there. It's just a bunch of propaganda paid for by Putin. But Adam Schiff appeared there. Also, Adam Schiff sent his staff to try to collect what he thought was classified materials after Russian pranksters told him that they had naked pictures of Donald Trump with a Russian Miss Universe pageant model, Olga Buzova. So Adam Schiff's staff actually asked to go to the Ukrainian embassy to pick up all of this damning evidence. Adam Schiff colluded with who he thought was Russian agents to dig up dirt on Donald Trump. You can't make this stuff up. This is why Adam Schiff is doing what he's doing, folks. As I've told you, the Salcedo Show axiom, what does it state? It states that progressives and liberals often assign qualities onto others that they themselves have in abundance. And the real Russia colluders, the Democrat Party. He told Volcan and Lexus, these are these two pranksters, two radio pranksters who have also hit Nikki Haley, that he would pass their claims on to the FBI in a call made last year. The duo posed as a fake Ukrainian politician to say Trump had sex with Russian glamour model Olga Buzova after a Miss Universe pageant in 2013. Schiff's office claimed he was not fooled by the call and reported it to authorities, but did not explain why his staff kept emailing these individuals. Call posted in April 2017 surfaced as Schiff waits to see if Trump will declassify his Democrat version of the Devin Nunes memo. So they have a recording of the weasel, Adam Schiff, trying to set this up and maybe kick it up a notch. I don't think you necessarily need to have a military parade, i.e. what all these dictators do. Thanks for the call, Pat. Appreciate it. 281-558-5738. The House has passed funding for the government. We'll see if the Senate does the same. But up next, we're going to deal with this soundbite from Donald Trump.
If we don't change the legislation, if we don't get rid of these loopholes where killers are allowed to come into our country and continue to kill, if we don't change it, let's have a shutdown.
Next, the Chris Salcedo Show on The Voice. Hump Day on The Voice of Texas, AM 700 KSEV. Morning, everybody. POTUS wants to know everything. That's what Peter Strzok's FBI tart had to say in her text messages to her corrupt boyfriend at the FBI, the guy trying to put his thumb on the scale, one of the head honchos at the FBI, one of the guys in charge of the Hillary Clinton investigation. You know, one of the guys at the top. The guy that makes all those rank and file FBI guys ashamed. You know, one of those guys, like Andrew McCabe, like James Comey. You know, one of those guys, like Rod Rosenstein. Anyway, they're saying Obama wanted to be kept in the loop, implicating the former occupier of the Oval Office. I know this is going to shock many of you, but it seems that Obama was involved in the DOJ and the FBI corruption. I know. Shocker. Breaking news. We could have told you that. Welcome to the program, everybody. Here we are on a Wednesday. Donald Trump yesterday coming out and saying, yeah, government shutdown. If I don't get some movement and some real solutions on illegal immigration. He was, of course, asked about the Colts player who was killed and that Uber driver who was killed by a drunk driving illegal alien who should not have been in the United States. A multiple time deportee. He came here illegally, committed a felony, was deported. He came back again, committed another felony, was deported. Came back again, and then killed Americans. Donald Trump spoke very passionately. You could tell, like so many Americans, he's fed up with this.
If we don't change the legislation, if we don't get rid of these loopholes where killers are allowed to come into our country and continue to kill, if we don't change it, let's have a shutdown. We'll do a shutdown, and it's worth it for our country. I'd love to see a shutdown if we don't get this stuff taken care of.
Now, what is the conventional wisdom? Conventional wisdom is, come on, the Democrats got the blame for the last shutdown. Their base abandoned them over it. They got the blame. You know, let's just don't even talk shutdown. We won. Conventional wisdom says do this. But I'm getting calls day after day after day from all of you who are ticked off. You don't live in that bubble in Washington. What you want is results. What you want is people going to jail for violating the law. What you want is some action. You're not worried about this. Oh, he's the shutdown person. Oh, no, he's the shutdown person. You're not worried about that. You're worried about what's best for your country. I got into a very interesting mix-up with a left-winger on the Washington Post. I'm sorry, the Washington Times page. Here was his argument. Oh, yay, shut the government down. Defund our military. Stop paychecks coming to our military. Great job. Thank you, Trump, he says. Thank you, Chris Salcedo. Thanks. And I've got to admit, that argument does give me a bit of pause. Here was my response, and I'm paraphrasing it. Well, I'm a little perturbed that our military would have to suffer for our government not solving this problem, 4 or 5 decades ago. But understand that when there's a government shutdown, credit can be extended. Accommodations can be made to our military men and women. The money that is not paid to our military just goes into an account and will be paid once the impasse is over. They get every penny. They will get every penny. When somebody's dead, you don't get that back. So I said to this leftist, I said, I think I'll let the readers decide whether my argument of preserving lives is better than your argument of preserving paychecks. And that's what I'm asking all of you. Because I think the press and all the punditry class, they're misreading this. The last debate over illegal immigration in the last shutdown was we must give benefits and accommodation to illegal alien kids who came here through no fault of their own. In essence, we're arguing over extending benefits to illegal aliens. And no, nobody wanted to shut down the government over that argument. This argument is different. This argument says, I want to stop illegal immigration because it's killing Americans. Like the Indianapolis Colts linebacker, like that poor Uber driver was driving him. They're dead. They don't get to come back after a government shutdown. And I think the American people, if we were going to say, shut down the government because we're fighting over giving the DACA kids benefits, say no. Shut down the government because we want this government to get up off its lazy rear end and stop illegal immigration. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And I think the political class up on Capitol Hill, they're misreading this. I think they're misreading this. Case in point, Fox News panel yesterday debating Trump's comments. Listen to this.
Jonathan, who got blamed last time? Who will get blamed this time?
Well, Democrats very clearly got blamed last time, and I think some of them anyway, regret the way that it panned out. I mean, this time, if President Trump keeps saying this, it's very hard, I think, for the Republicans to claim that it's a Democratic shutdown.
Who cares? what Jonathan doesn't understand is that the base of the Republican Party, they view shutdown as another tool to advance our priorities, which is the rule of law and stopping bad things from happening to our country, i.e. illegal immigration that kills our citizens.
I made a few phone calls after those comments to try and figure out what happened. Was there a grand strategy behind it? It seems not. The consensus seems to be that it was an emotional reaction, and he's been hearing about deaths of people at the hands of illegal immigrants. So I don't know that this was a particularly strategic comment made by the president.
And you're damned right. He's passionate about it. As a matter of fact, this has been one of the issues that Donald Trump can't be accused of not studying thoroughly, because he's with the vast majority of the American people. Illegal immigration is wrong, it's immoral, and it's bad for the United States of America. By the way, I may have been a little rough on this leftist, because when he said that he wasn't in favor of the government shutdown because of paychecks to the military, I said, well, I'm sure the family of the Colts linebacker and the Uber driver would be touched by your concern for their life. And as a matter of fact, we went through this whole thread on the Washington Times page, and never once did he say that he sympathized with Americans' families who were being killed by illegal aliens. Never once. As a matter of fact, he said their death was worth it to keep money going to our military. Do you guys believe that? That American citizens dying in the streets at the hands of illegal aliens, whether they be drunks, whether they be thugs or murderers or MS-13, that's all worth it to keep the government going? I mean, we asked this question yesterday. Sylvester Turner, how many Houstonians are you willing to see die at the hands of illegal aliens to keep up your sanctuary city status? Now, he'll never have to answer that question. It's a good question. I'm positing that to you guys. Was I a little too rough on the liberal? Fox News panel continued to discuss this.
I don't think it's going to come down to a shutdown this Friday. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, even though the president made these remarks, are saying they're going to pass a short-term spending stopgap.
A shutdown. 2 people are dead. One is very high profile. This scenario plays itself out all over the United States on a daily basis. People are dying from individuals who shouldn't be here to begin with. And you're worried about a government shutdown. You're worried about a government shutdown. Well, if the government shut down, people could die. No, you know what, folks? Only 18, and a real government shutdown, only 18% of the government, only non-essentials are out. Non-essentials. Everything else that guards life stays on the job. Not paid, but they stay on the job. They eventually get paid. So I'm sorry. Maybe I'm missing this. Maybe it's just me. But I think human life trumps, pardon the pun, keeping the government open.
And look, the timing of this is particularly interesting because Republican leaders in the House and Senate have been trying for months to get Democrats to drop their demands for a bipartisan DACA fix in order to do a long-term budget deal that gives the military stability, a huge priority for President Donald Trump. And it sounds like the Democrats are about to cave on that this week. And this is a huge deal. It's a huge victory for Republicans if they can get Democrats to vote for a long-term budget agreement without a fix for DACA. And the president coming in and saying, let's shut the government down, it has a lot of Republicans even scratching their heads at that.
Yeah.
Howie?
Shannon, the press is playing the president's remarks about a shutdown as a big threat. It's not. It's a poke. It's baiting the Democrats. There's not going to be a shutdown.
See, that's all they're consumed with. Shut down. What about the people who are dying in the streets at the hands of illegal aliens? And I'm not being rhetorical, folks. It just happened a couple of days ago. What about them? Oh, shutdown, government. Oh, prized government. Really? What about human lives? Maybe you guys are going to side against me on this. Maybe you're saying, Chris, stopping illegal aliens from coming in this country and killing American citizens, that's not worth it. We got to keep the paychecks flowing to government. And yes, and that includes our military. Or maybe you're with me saying, you know what? Human lives are more important than paychecks. Back in a minute, the Chris Salcedo Show. All right, coming up at the bottom of the hour, folks, we'll talk a little bit about the spending practices here in the great state of Texas. And all morning long, we'll be taking your calls on this debate before us. Paychecks or lives? What's more important to you, keeping the government open or lives? Kevin, glad you waited. Welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show. What's going on?
Chris, that jackass that sent you that email about the military really needs to get educated. The military is going to be taken care of. They're not going to go without food or anything else. The only thing they're not going to have is their paycheck in their account. USAA is giving all active duty service members in all branches a free 0% loan to cover them during these shutdowns if their families run into any hardships. So they're going to be taken care of, and these people that are going after Trump, I mean, let's face it, they're just anti-American communist bastards from hell.
Well, I got to ask you, how many service members do you know, Kevin, who would say, "Oh, you know what? I want to have my paycheck, and I'm willing to sacrifice Americans' lives." No, that's not what they signed up for. That's not their duty. That's not their heart. All these American military guys would and gals would tell you, the vast majority of them, look, we'll make it because this stuff will pass. But when it comes to saving American lives, that's what we signed up for, to save American lives. And if we've got to sacrifice in a small way, having to extend a little bit of credit here, or not have the bank account reflect our paycheck, 1 or 2 pay periods, we'll do it to save American lives. I don't know any American military person who would say, "Oh no, I want my paycheck and I don't care how many Americans have to die because of it."
Hey Chris, we got over here in Harris County, we got a constable that got assaulted, and it went viral because of the picture. He was an older constable, and he got his eye messed up pretty bad. He was bleeding, and the picture made the news. But the thing that made me proud about that man, and this is what makes America great, this man is one of, I think, 200,000 deputies or constables, deputies, law enforcement that volunteer, that do not get paid to do this work because they know how important it is. And they're not worried about money. They're not worried about getting paid. They're worried about doing the right thing for Americans. And that's something the Democrats do not understand. They don't want to put America first. They're globalists. They want to have world supremacy and all that other crap. They talk about white supremacy. Hell, they want world supremacy.
Well,
they want it all.
I got into a conversation about this with my mother-in-law just the other day. She was talking about how Trump said something about the UK's healthcare system, which is socialist healthcare system, right? And they have a great deal of pride in their socialism over there. They like the fact that their healthcare sucks compared to ours. I don't understand it, but they're proud of it.
I told you about my daughter, giving me the speech about how great socialism was.
Yes.
And I gave her the limousine theory. If everybody's equal, then the guy going to work in construction should get a limousine ride the same as the guy going to the executive suite to go to work. But then who gives those limousine drivers a ride to their limousine shop? Yeah. Sooner or later, you run out of limousine drivers. And it's like I told my daughter, it's like Margaret Thatcher said, sooner or later, socialists run out of other people's money.
That's true.
And then they go to dictatorship. It's an evil thing, and it needs to be eliminated.
Exactly. And it's not that they so much want worldwide domination, is that the United States existence, the fact that we are more successful, the fact that we are as free and as prosperous and innovative as we have been, Obama notwithstanding, that all of these dictatorships, these socialist utopias like over in Europe, that their people see how good it is here. And if it weren't for America, they'd be completely satisfied thinking, well, this is just our lot in life. This is as good as it gets.
Yeah,
but America disproves that by our very existence. And this is why we're so hated, because despots and dictators want the people they oppress to think that's about as good as their life is going to get. They want these socialist capitals want their people to think, well, the best you can have is government handouts and your meager existence. And America disproves that. And that's why so many socialists can't stand us.
Great talk, Chris. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. 281 558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Lewis, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show. Glad you tuned in. Hello, Lewis.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Hey, I just have one question. I'll hang up and listen. Is why does Congress get paid during a government shutdown?
They're viewed as essential.
Pardon me?
I know.
They haven't passed the budget in how long?
I know.
They're not even doing their damn job. But wait a minute.
But guess who determined they were essential?
Oh, yeah, they did.
They did. Not us.
Yeah, exactly.
They did. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Yep.
But anyway, great show.
Thank you, sir.
Chris.
Appreciate it, Lou. James, you're up next here on the Salcedo Show. What's going on?
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
I wanted to call about Trump's little his comment about the shutdown.
Yeah.
I don't think he should shut it down. Now, what I want to see as a citizen is not necessarily shut down. I want to see an all-out, part of the football term, I want to see a blitz on deportation. Seriously. Like, a shutdown, what's it really going to do?
So you're saying that Donald Trump could threaten deportation unless these guys...
Not only would I threaten deportation, I would threaten DACA straight up. I would take my deal off the table. Because as an American citizen, I say it like this. Not one life, not one American life is not worth any illegal immigrant. Not one. And the reason why is I say that I feel this way. If that one life was one in my house, I'm sorry. I don't care if it was 1 million illegal immigrants. They're not worth it.
Well, I've got to ask you then, James, because what Donald Trump is saying is that, nothing is more important to these bureaucrats up on Capitol Hill than their precious government, than their ineffective and corrupt government. Nothing is more important to them. So what if Donald Trump says, I'll shut it down. I'll cut off all of your campaign funding as because all of those public employee unions in Washington, D.C., they pay Democrat campaigns nearly exclusively. I'll cut it all off. We'll shut the government down unless you get off your butt and solve illegal immigration. You don't like that tact?
Well, I think honestly, it's a dog and pony show because you already know the courts are already going to try to extend DACA out past the 5th deadline. Okay, this is just something to stretch out. Then they're going to try to smear it. They're going to try to say that if you think that if you're not for illegal immigration, you're a racist.
Well,
and let me tell you something. I'm a Hispanic, and I don't agree with it. I'm sorry.
I don't agree with the illegal immigration either. But I think what Donald Trump is trying to signal to the American people is that this has to stop, and it has to stop now. That we have this high profile killing by an illegal alien, but this stuff is happening every single day. Illegals are killing American citizens all over the place, and the Democratic Party doesn't care, and the Lindsey Graham Republicans don't care.
How far do you how long do you keep taking punches before you punch back?
And I think this is Donald Trump's way of punching back. I know you don't agree with the government shutdown, but
it's not because I don't agree that I don't think a government shutdown wouldn't do anything. That's my whole point. Is I don't think that it's enough. I think that they need to feel the pressure.
No, I agree. I agree with that.
The whole out pressure. I would start deporting. I'd hit the jails first.
So about the argument though that this leftist was in with me on Facebook when I said that American lives trump paychecks. Where do you come on that? Paychecks to our military. Where do you come down? Do you think that? And I think that a lot of military folks would side with me anyway. But where do you think?
If you ask me that specific question, I agree with you.
All right.
However, I feel like, hey, you know what? They feel like, oh, they're going to get paid anyway. They know, just like you know they're going to get paid. They know they're going to get paid.
Yep.
It's just basically who could hold out the best. But what do you do really when you start really rounding these people up and you start in jail? And guess what? When their family members have to say, oh, guess what? They're getting my husband, my wife, my daughter, son, whatever. They're getting them in jail, and they're coming down. that are so-called trying to hold it out, they will contact those Democrats.
Well,
and
James,
sit there and then they'll feel the heat.
just consider what you're saying. If you want to go the roundup, we don't have a secure southern border. I mean, that guy that just killed the Colts linebacker and the Uber driver, he was deported. He committed a felony, deported, came back, committed a felony, deported again, came back, and then killed those two people. You start deporting people, they're coming right back in because the southern border is not being policed. The southern border is not stopping illegal aliens. We don't have the tools yet. See, I think, if we ever get to deportation, and you guys know me, I'm not about punishing the American taxpayer twice for the failures of government. But if we ever got there, wouldn't it make sense to make sure that if we're going to deport folks, they can't get back in easily? I'm just asking. All right, we're talking Texas economics and also national economics. Coming up next, Stephen Moore from the Heritage Foundation, folks. He's in Texas. He's going to try to sort through the mess that Joe Strauss and Sarah Davis and Dan Huberty created up there in the State House. Back in a minute, the Chris Salcedo Show on The Voice.
Upper 70s for the afternoon.
All right, Courtney Spamer in the KSEV Weather Center with those details. Thank you very much. Folks, let's get to our guest this morning, Stephen Moore, noted economist with the foundation, the Heritage Foundation, I should say, and a former member of the Wall Street Journal editorial board. He's the founder and former president of the Club for Growth. He is the author of 5 books, including the New York Times bestseller, An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of States. Sir, welcome back to the Chris Salcedo Show. It's been a while.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with you.
All right, 16th annual policy orientation for the Texas legislature is going to be held, well, today and through the 9th. What is the topic of conversation there? Why are we having this event 16 years going?
Well, Texas is a high-flying state, no question about it. I mean, Texas has been one of the fastest-growing states in the last 10, 15 years, and it continues to be a model for the rest of the states. That's one of the reasons I wanted to come here and talk about what you do right here in Texas, which is great. I mean, you have no income tax. You're a right-to-work state. You have less regulation and less spending than most other states do, and yet you have good services. So it's a great model for the rest of the nation. But what I'm going to talk about today is really what's happening on the national level. When I worked for Donald Trump on the campaign as a senior economic advisor, I helped put together that tax plan, and it's been an amazing success. It's incredible how many businesses are moving to the United States, how much capital is coming in. There's now 4 million workers who've gotten bonuses. So this tax cut has been a stunning success. And in fact, Trump's whole agenda has been amazing. We got a report last week that predicts that we might get 5% growth in the first quarter of 2018. We haven't had 5% growth in 30 years. So these policies of lower taxes, less regulation, and getting the government out of the way of private businesses so they can do their thing and hire workers and expand, it works at the state level and in Washington.
You mentioned the things that work here in Texas, and one of the things I've noted is that we limit our exposure to our politicians. They meet every other year.
I love that.
Oh, no,
I love that. I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, there are states like Texas and some other, states like Florida and New Hampshire that, their politicians aren't meeting every day and sticking their finger at everything in the economy. I mean, so I agree with that. I think it's a wonderful thing you have a part-time legislature.
Yeah, but still, those committed leftists will do their darndest to really stick their nose into your life. And we have a couple of those here in the state of Texas. A guy named Joe Strauss, his lieutenants like Sarah Davis and Dan Huberty, they work very hard to make this, our government and our state, a government-centered state rather than a people-centered state. If you were going to give advice to the state of Texas, how legislators set priorities for their budgets. And one of our big problems here is that we have out-of-control property taxes, a state legislature that refuses to address the problem. So if you were going to give advice for spending priorities to a state like Texas that has, as you noted, a lot of things going right, how could we be better?
Well, first of all, you need a spending cap. You need to have put your government on a real budget. By the way, that's something we don't do in Washington. That's one of the reasons we have runaway debts and huge deficits in Washington is we just spend and spend and spend, and we don't have any kind of cap on spending. And that's needed in Washington. It's also needed in Texas. Look, most of the people listening to the show are work for a business or run a business. If you run a business, you have to have a budget. You can't spend more than you take in. You got to make a profit, right? That's the purpose of a business. And so I love that idea of putting some kind of constitutional cap on the spending, the rate of growth of spending. So the most important thing is you want to make sure your government spending doesn't run out faster than your, the private income, so that, the government doesn't take more private income every year than people can afford. Because you're right, everything's good in Texas. I mean, not everything, but most things are very good in your government. But your property taxes have become a problem. And let's not forget that under the new tax law, the federal tax law, you only can take a deduction up to $10,000 in property taxes. Well, a lot of people in Texas are paying a lot more than $10,000 a year in property taxes. So you're going to have more pressure now to bring down your property taxes. I would love to see a Proposition 13 type amendment. Proposition 13 was the famous California cap on property taxes that limited the growth of property taxes to 1% per year. I'd love to see something like that in Texas.
Yeah, we have to have a government that is people-centered rather than government-centered. And now that we're getting rid of some of these leaders like Joe Strauss, a man who calls himself a Republican but is actually an extremist liberal, and his lieutenants like Sarah Davis and Dan Huberty and others, Charlie Guerin up in North Texas, if we can get those guys out of the way of progress, we can get there. Stephen Moore, famed economist, our guest right now here on the Chris Salcedo Show. He's in town. He's in the state. A 16th annual policy orientation for the Texas legislature that's happening now and through the 9th. Let me pivot now to the nation's capital, because this report was, and you already alluded to this, was quietly released that we are on track to be close to $1 trillion in deficit for this budget year, which ends in September. And all the tax reform in the world, Mr. Moore, and you know this, all the tax reform in the world is going to be meaningless if we can't get this profligate spending under control.
Well, that's right. That's always a problem. Washington is getting the spending under control, and right now neither party is really much interested in spending control. Looks like they're going to be about $100 billion over the legislative spending caps this year. But I mean, look, the big news really is the tax cut has been an extraordinary success, and Donald Trump's agenda of deregulating our economy, getting taxes down, and promoting American energy has been a phenomenal success. I mean, I remember when I was working for Trump during the campaign, and people would say, Nobel Prize winning economist, oh my God, Trump is going to cause the second world, Great Depression, and we're going to crash the stock market, and none of these policies are going to work.
Yeah.
And we've seen, we never got more than 2% growth under Obama. His rate of growth in 8 years was 2%. Already the economy is growing at 3%, and it looks like it's headed to 4% growth for 2018. The tax cut, which provides the most relief for businesses and families since Reagan, was a phenomenal achievement for the president. And, we didn't know whether we were going to get that 50th vote in the Senate. It was touch and go there for a while. But, did you know there's 4 million workers now that have gotten bonuses, pay raises, or other benefit increases as a result of this tax cut?
Right.
4 million people?
Well, guess what's going to happen? And you and I know this because every single time we have done real tax reform in this country, it has meant increased revenues into the federal treasury. It always happens. Happened with Kennedy, happened with Reagan. And what good, and I'll ask you this question because I know you know the answer, what good is increased revenue into the federal government if the federal government is just going to be spending like drunken sailors, with all apologies to drunken sailors?
Well, Reagan used to say that's an insult to drunken sailors.
Uh-huh.
So you're quite correct. I mean, we got to make sure we get government spending under control. But to bring the debt down and deficit down, you've got to grow the economy. You've got to grow the private sector. And we've been such a rut for the last 10 10 years, where we just haven't had any real impressive growth in the economy. I traveled around the country with the president. I mean, we went to places like Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania and West Virginia, places that had not seen any kind of recovery. I mean, you guys in Texas saw a great recovery because of the shale gas boom, which was really invented here in Texas, which was hugely important for Texas and the world and the national economy. But so many other areas just didn't see a recovery, and it's so great to see how Trump has rebuilt the coal industry. We're producing coal again. We're manufacturing again. We've created 500,000 new manufacturing, construction, and mining jobs in just 1 year.
And they said
those were areas where we've been losing jobs under Obama.
And they said it couldn't be done. Barack Obama, the great Barack Obama, said, just kiss manufacturing goodbye. It's never coming back. Well, guess what? It's coming back. So
it sure is.
One of the many lies that we were told by the previous administration. And now the United States is an energy exporter and a giant in the energy exporting business. Stephen Moore, everybody. He is with the Heritage Foundation. He's a noted economist. And as you could tell, he was very close with Donald Trump and informing some of his economic policies as well. Glad you're here in the state of Texas. Look forward to talking to you again, sir.
Okay. Thanks for having me. Great to be with you. Have a great day.
You too, sir. Thank you very much. And that's going to do it here for the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide on the VIDA Television Network. I want to remind everyone that I think I'm one of the few individuals on television who actually allows you to directly interact with me, unfiltered, live. All you got to do is call AM 700 KSEV 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV from the hours of 7:30 a.m. Eastern until 10 o'clock Eastern, and let your voice be heard. Maybe you don't think we covered something fairly, or maybe you don't think we've covered something enough. It's your chance to weigh in. You can also do so via social media. Go to chrissalcedo.com. All of our contact information is there, or you can do it live in real time during those same hours at Chris Salcedo TX. Even off hours, we respond to Twitter, and it's a good chance if you make a compelling argument, it'll be featured on the show if I'm not on the air at the time the following day. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide here on the VIDA Television Network. We'll see you next time.